Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to our organizers, panelists, and audience. Thank you so much for being here on a Sunday morning. Before I start, I wanted to inform the panelists and the audience that this discussion is being live streamed and recorded. Purnima, would you please drop in the link for the live stream so that we can share it around? Thank you so much. My name is Bunda, and I've been volunteering in the internet governance space for over a year now. Being a former teacher in a government school through the Teach for India Fellowship, I wish to equip myself with the knowledge and skills required to create an impact and shape the future of the internet. We really appreciate your enthusiasm to be a part of a panel discussion titled Dialogue on Digital Inclusion. Does the internet represent diverse voices? Being organized by the Internet Society Hyderabad chapter, Internet Society Chennai chapter, and Youth IGF India. Internet United was the overarching theme chosen for the 16th Internet Governance Forum held from December 6th to 10th in a hybrid format. The Internet Governance Forum is a global multi-stakeholder platform that brings stakeholders together to discuss public policy issues related to the Internet. The overarching theme, Internet United, envisions the Internet connecting all its users into one community responsible for its shape and functioning. Our shared dreams, ideas, needs, and actions are what shapes the Internet of the future. This dialogue today on digital inclusion is taking the conversation forward from the discussions at the Internet Governance Forum to highlight and discuss crucial sub-themes under the broader umbrella of digital inclusion with an attempt to explore if the Internet is really inclusive in reality through the lenses of various socioeconomic groups, such as the women, LGBTQ community, persons with disabilities, rural communities, different linguistic communities, and marginalized political groups. A few housekeeping rules before we begin. Throughout the webinar, we will be adhering to the Internet Society's Code of Conduct, which was shared with the email yesterday. We have a question and answer session towards the end of the panel discussion. To ask your question, you can either raise your hand or post it in the chat window. We'll make a note of it and share it with our moderator. Please keep the chat window active. Your inputs are valuable in shaping this discussion. For social media promotions, we encourage you to spread the word on social media platforms. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Someone somebody help me mute everyone. Thank you. So for social media promotions, we encourage you to spread the word on social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Kindly use the hashtags while promoting, hashtag Internet for All, hashtag Digital Inclusion. You can tag us along in your posts on Twitter, and I'll leave the usernames in the chat. I'll also be tweeting live about the panel discussion from my personal handle. Moving on, I'd like to now introduce Adarsh, a moderator for the session. Recognized as one of the top 8 IoT thought leaders of India for his contribution towards the advancement of Internet of Things, Adarsh has more than 9 years of experience in core wireless technologies and is currently a lead business analyst at the Center of Excellence for Internet of Things with the Happiest Minds Technology. He is the president of Global Internet Society Rural Development Special Interest Group and the joint secretary of the Internet Society Hyderabad chapter. With his intensive background and experiences in the domain of internet governance, I'm sure he'll do justice in moderating today's panel discussion successfully. Without any further delay, I now hand over the floor to Adarsh. Over to you.
Am I audible, Brenda? Can you please confirm if I'm audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Adarsh.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for that. So a warm good morning to one and all. So thank you, Brenda, for introducing me. And it's my pleasure actually to moderate this wonderful panel on this, especially it's amazing topic. So I'm extremely overwhelmed to get this opportunity to heartily warm welcome you all to this session on the dialogue on inclusion. Does the internet represent diverse voices? So thank you so much for investing your time with us and for the next 1.5 hours on this warm Sunday morning. So as a next step, just I would like to step with our keynote speaker. So it's time for me to welcome our keynote speaker. So today we have a wonderful, amazing person, Sudha Bhuneshwari. So Sudha Bhuneshwari is a chair of an ISOC India Chennai chapter. So it is like an honor for me to welcome Ms. Sudha Bhuneshwari on behalf of the event hosting team and organization. So she's like an academician and also like a research supervisor with the specialization in networking with the work experience of more than 20 years and greatly involved and committed to contribute to the and to serve to the community. So she's actively involved in Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum, Indian School of Internet Governance, APNIC Committee, and many more. It's like a very amazing. Even I had an experience of working with Sudha Bhuneshwari, the amazing person. So with a lot of experience, are greatly going to give a lot of details. So all my ears to Sudha Bhuneshwari. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Adarsh, for that introduction. I'm really happy to join you all today, and I'm also very happy to see there are participants on a Sunday morning, and we are hoping for a very fruitful session and a discussion today. So a gleaming morning to all, and very happy to welcome all the participants today for the panel discussion on dialogue on inclusion. Does the Internet represent diverse voices, supported by the Internet Society Hyderabad and Chennai chapter and the Youth IGF India. So the Internet Society, as you know, is a not-profit organization which was established in the year 1992. And it's a global cause-related organization which works towards building technical standards, education, and capacity building, as well as public policy. So the Internet Society's vision is that the Internet is for everyone. Its mission is to build, promote, and defend the development of the Internet as a global technical infrastructure and as a resource to enrich people's life and a force for good in society. Internet United was a thematic chosen for the 16th Internet Governance Forum, as Brinda was telling. And taking the conversation forward, this is actually an attempt to explore if the Internet is really inclusive through the lenses of various communities. So being on the Internet provides a very endless opportunities for everyone towards growth. And the true potential of Internet was realized through the landmark case of the Arab Spring, which saw digital activism officially come into existence. And the key participants, Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet, received a Nobel Peace Prize for 2015 for its decisive contribution to the building of a pluralistic democracy in Tunisia. The Internet has encompassed the public sphere, and this inclusion of public sphere also had societal biases, making their debate in digital spaces. So this has led to the creation of fractured spaces where the ideals of transparency, trust, decentralization, and non-discrimination is contrasted with the realities of hate speech, fake news, trolling, and cyberbullying. This program mainly aims to build a diverse and inclusive panel to highlight and discuss crucial sub-themes under the broader umbrella of digital inclusion. And through this dialogue, our aim is to get the audience to engage with the esteemed speakers and understand the barriers to creating an inclusive Internet. And there are many topics covered during the discussion, like gender, digital divide, linguistic diversity, political voices in online spaces, inclusion, digital rights, digital inclusion of rural India, and many more. So I take this opportunity to congratulate the efforts taken up by Ms. Brinda and Ms. Purnima to organize a discussion on the hottest topic of digital inclusion. And special thanks to Mr. Adarsh for moderating the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sudha Bhuneshwari, for your words. So now, just I'm jumping on. So we have like the big list of panels, the wonderful speakers with us. So it's like an amazing panelist to discuss on a dialogue on inclusion. Does the Internet represent diverse voices? So, right, yeah, when I was going through the governance and all, a lot of stuff I used to hear, which is I'm basically from a technical person. So, though, like, if I look into that for the nation, for the country like an India, So gender, like an digital divide, is like an India's gender digital divide. How the absence of digital access is leaving, like it could be an woman behind in the COVID-19 situation, or else in the aspect of transforming the digital divide into the digital inclusion, or even in I was thinking like an families with low income, or as in the rural perspective, rural population, or as industry, and even the disabled one, trans communities have found like themselves on the wrong side of the digital divide. Is it that case? How it could be come up? And so these are the things I was which are there in mind, and even I was, whenever I go through any of the topics of these kind of topics will come up in my mind. So anyhow, we have like a wonderful panels here. So it's my pleasure now to introduce each panels. So first, I would like to welcome Divya Gupta. So Divya Gupta is an independent consultant with over 5 years of an experience in working on the issue of gender and development. So in the course of her professional journey, she had done focus like in programmatic research and various organizations on the subjects of commercial sex work and the human trafficking, gender and sanitation and educational reformation for young immigrants immersion for crimes against women in Tihar jail. So currently, she is working as a research and advocacy consultant with organizations that aims to promote women in non-traditional livelihoods and transportational and construction industries. So, Ms. Divya Gupta, a warm welcome to you to the session. So, next panel that I have is like a seminar. So, I would like to welcome Seminar. Seminar is head of a flagship program of Youth for Jobs Foundation. So, he focuses on skilling and linking less educated youth with disabilities. So, in sustainable livelihoods across India, currently with presence of 32 states across India, he has trained and placed like 29,000 plus youth, mostly from remote village, the rural and remote areas and the villages in India. I really appreciate that one, Mr. Saminar. So please welcome to this session. So the very next one, we have Ritushri. So Ritushri is a transgender woman, lawyer, DA and I professional, and India's first transgender woman stand-up comedian. So she's also the co-founder of the Outcast Collective and DIE and a posh consulting firm. So she's a queer rights activist, corporate speaker, and write articles on various platforms on issues concerning the LGBTQ community. So heartily welcome to Ritushri. So the very next I would like to introduce is Savita Mulay. So Savita Mulay has spent close to 20 years of the business and technology. So in which 18 years were like in mainstream products, technology and the management consulting across 5 countries. And she's now pursuing her passion to use technology for good and being driving products and tech at AgriShack for the past 1.5 years, so focusing on building solutions for low income, low literacy population in India. So the very next one that I would like to introduce is Meena Kotwal. So Meena Kotwal is like an Dalit journalist. So founding editor of the Mook Nayak, the YouTube channel and the web portal. She's worked with an BBC Hindi in Delhi and India as a broadcast journalist. She lives in Delhi. So through her work, she's actively raising awareness on Dalit and women issuing through Twitter, where she holds massive inclusive with 99.5K followers currently. That's great. So Meena Kotwal, heartily welcome to the session as well. So yeah, the next one I would like to welcome is like an Vidushi Kapoor. So Vidushi graduated from Lady Shri Ram College, New Delhi, with an honors degree on economics after growing with an Ernst and Young Goldman Sachs. Her deep interest in Indian languages combined with the passion to solve complex problems led her to join hands with veterans in the language technology space to co-found Prosman. So 9 years into the industry, she has helped build products and solutions for the localization industry and has learned to read and speak many new languages. Among the way, she has spoke informed hosted by FICI and CIT Lob and others. So I understand that the country like an India with multiple languages, which were very, very important. So great to know, Vidushi Kapoor. Heartily welcome to the session. So yeah, our panelists goes again. Still have a few more to introduce. The next one I would like to take up is Shruti Shreya. So Shruti Shreya is a lawyer by training and a senior research associated in a Delhi-based tech policy thing called the Dialogue, where she leads the vertical and platform regulation. Shruti's primary area of research include intermediary liability, content moderation, and freedom of expression. Yeah, freedom of expression is the term which always grabbed me. So Shruti Shreya, heartily welcome again for you as well for the section. So, and our last panel member, so Bhuvana Meenakshi. So Bhuvana Meenakshi is a socio-tech researcher, Mozillian, Wikimedian, and multi-dimensional space enthusiast. She is one of the recipients of the Shuttleworth Flash Grant Awards 2021. Bhuvana initiated the Women in Tech community in India to enable more voices of women who are interested in pursuing a career in tech. She is the co-founder of Emerge Ability, an initiative to make the digital world inclusion and accessible technology of numerous diverse. She's also facilitated global events like an MOSFest and ACFO Panglam. So yeah, this is wonderful stuff, and I would like to heartily congratulate you for an Shuttleworth Flash Grant Awards of 2021 from our side. Heartily welcome to you, Bhuvana Meenakshi, for the section. So by looking into these profiles, I really feel like a great to hear today wonderful profiles with a lot of experience in the diversified areas we have here with us today for the section. So to talk about an linguistic diversity and the multilingualism of the internet or political voices, so there's an expertise from the political voices perspective in the online space, and as well as inclusion of person with the disabilities. Yeah, I agree. Where we are missing, we have a lot of discussions related to an internet. Are we missing the disability persons in the discussions to understand their requirements? And digital rights in the LGBTQ plus communities, I agree completely with that one. What are all the aspects is going on? And is that the digital freedom is an LGBT is an issue? How the technology, policies, and regulations are supporting in these aspects has to be considered. And also much more to understand from the wonderful panel. So I have like three kind of inquiries here to keep up. So it's like for the speakers, I would like to ask, so some kind of questions is in the way. Just let me show that. Yeah. So, Purnima, can you present the questions?
Yeah, Adarsh. I think it's visible.
Yeah, thank you so much. My bad, I will keep up. So the questions I would like to ask with like specifically with the panelists. So it's like do you think, so as we are seeing with the inclusion, internet inclusion, do you think the internet is currently an inclusive? That comes in mind first. And does it represent voices of diverse communities? So are we considering the diversified communities and all? So these all aspects which comes in our mind first. And also I would like to discuss much more like according to you people. So based on your experience, what are the key challenges in making internet more inclusive space? So, and yeah, it's not only about the challenges. So how can we overcome those challenges? Also very much important. In your opinion, in based on your experience, till like you all like have like a great experience in these specific aspects, what could be the solution framework? So for these solutions to make online space more inclusive, more and more in the faster way, and any policy measures or interventions that the government or private companies, etc., can take up to help the said community in the navigating through the internet. This is what we would like to hear from you all. So yeah, I agree. So your words, your experience will giving a lot of insights for us. First, I would like to go ahead and to discuss related to this one from the gender digital divide experience that like in Divya Gupta. So Divya Gupta, what's your points with respect to this? I'm very much interested to hear from you. Over to you, Divya Gupta.
Hi, Adarsh. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes. Hi, and thank you so much for the introduction. And it's wonderful to be a part of this diverse panel today. The question that is internet currently inclusive starts with asking the question that who is using the internet? And there is a massive gender divide. Which is visible, which actually got widened during the COVID. We saw a lot of girls drop out of schools. We saw a lot of women lose jobs when things went digital. It disproportionately impacted women who are mostly employed in the informal sector. It mostly affected girls who couldn't access the digital resources to educate themselves at homes. So what are the major reasons why there is this access gap? And I think when we look at I'm so sorry. Yeah. When we look at the when we look at discrimination at the intra-household level, especially in terms of access to resources, a boy's education is preferred over a girl's education. So if especially, and it gets widened with the rural-urban divide. So families in the rural areas with limited resources would prefer their boys' education over the girls' education. So they get left out of opportunities there. Women who do not know how to leverage platforms, social platforms, digital platforms to, gain economic opportunities, they lose out on jobs, they lose out on, opportunities there. So I think there's this wider mindset, which we also saw like recently, UP's commission, UP's Women Commission, that there was a comment by her that if girls are given phone, they'll run away with boys from, different castes. So this mindset that girls should not be given phones because they will get spoiled. It's a big. It represents the mindset which is actually leading to this gap in access to digital resources, this gender divide. Obviously, women and girls are 15% less likely to own a phone and 33% less likely to use internet services on it. And it just in India, I think that gap is the widest in Asia Pacific countries. India has the widest gap in access to resources. So yeah, I think a lot of these challenges need to be identified. Internet is a powerful medium for organizing a women's movement, and we saw that during the Me Too campaign. Women from all over the world, were able to raise voices against sexual harassment. But again, who got missed out? It was the women from marginalized communities. It did not represent the voices of Dalit and tribal women. And this gap, it widens with caste, with the rural-urban divide. And I think it is important to understand how this divide in access to internet resources on the basis of caste, on the basis of where the people are residing, is important in informing policy decisions. So for that, we need to have gender disaggregated data on, on how this divide widens with, more levels of marginalization. How can we, so I think having worked with women on their skill development, I think I've seen stories where women who were not able to access, who did not have phones or did not know how to use phones, when they got connected to skill development platforms and given mandatory, digital literacy, were able to actually negotiate using phones at home, could actually access internet to, form their own support groups, or, expand their economic activities. So I think that is a very important part where we can, bring about policy changes. So whatever skill development programs that government is running at the moment should mandatorily include digital literacy programs for women. I think that is a very important aspect of, because with economic independence comes that confidence, comes that negotiation power at home to use mobile phones and use internet.
Right. I agree, completely agree with you. So specifically, I agree the terms what you are told. So there is the elders have like an misassumptions if we give to the access to the digital, specifically to the women or something missing happens. So there are a lot of challenges though in rural or remote areas to access the digital, but we giving that even though if they have an access, so then other misassumptions they have around there. So thanks for sharing that. I would like to hear much more from the Ritushri aspect, since Ritushri is a transgender woman and the lawyer, and she's like an co-founder of the Outcast Collective, a DA and Posh consulting firm. So what's your thoughts, Ritushri? Can you please share?
Hi, good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Good morning, Adarsh, and good morning, Purnima, and good morning to all. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts with this beautiful panel. This is a very important topic when we talk about representation and diversity in internet, because in today's world, internet is a massive thing, like from shaping the ideas of society to getting access to from government to private, service. You need internet. And regarding the question, do you think the internet is currently inclusive and does it represent voices of diverse community? I would delve into the matter by saying, see, I represent the queer community, and as a diversity and inclusion professional, I would say, yes, it represents the diverse community, but it is not inclusive. Like if I say how, internet is a medium where, in recent years, the oppressed community who has not been represented on mainstream platforms have got a voice. Meena Kotwali is with us in the panel. She runs Muknaik, a Dalit Voice, a platform for oppressed communities. It became possible only because of internet. If you see the trans rights movement, when we were opposing the trans bill, no mainstream media was showing, but yes, internet gave us the power, the voice. So yeah, it represents diverse community because you will find diverse voices on internet. But is it inclusive? No, because diversity and inclusion are two different things. Diversity means some portion representation of diverse groups, but inclusion means, are they really feeling safe and inclusive on internet? Coming from a queer community, I would say no, the internet is not at all inclusive. Why I'm saying so? See, for queer people, like even from my journey, my coming out was through internet. Before coming out to my family and friends, I came out on my social media, posting my photos, interacting with people, who gave me strength. And this is the story of many queer people who choose to come out on social media first. It should be the safe space. But if you have seen recently, there were many homophobic, transphobic content are there. People are trolling queer people, queer persons, but there is no regulation to report those. Like if you see a transphobic, homophobic content on YouTube, there or on Twitter, there is no way to report those and taking, you cannot take down those videos and tweets saying that, okay, so this is not inclusive. Maybe you are giving a platform to the diverse community of the queer community, but you are not making them feel safe and inclusive. Another thing, if you go through the internet on many platforms, be it government or private, websites on apps and everything, most of them give you, ask you gender data when you are opening an account. And when they are asking the gender data, they provide the options on binary male or female. They do not provide you the options to choose, transgender, non-binary, or anything. Some of them provide the option male, female, and others. Now, for this this year on Trans Visibility Day, we ran a campaign called Ungender Form, where we asked the companies, government agencies to provide the options for transgender and non-binary people. Most of them, they didn't listen to us. Some of them said, okay, we know this is important, but this is not urgent. And some said, okay, we have given you the choice of others. And our question was, we are not others. We have an identity, So this is the thing. So internet does represent diverse voices, but it is not at all inclusive. Now, the key challenges are, from the perspective of the queer community, is gender sensitization. People do not understand. People think that, okay, this is only some jokes or some trolling on queer people on internet, but they fail to understand that this, shaping of idea, this homophobic, transphobic thing you are seeing on internet, it shapes the idea on ground. And for that, the queer community is facing lots and lots and lots of violence. Recently, 3 days ago, we saw a murder of a trans woman in Tamil Nadu, those, and that is very important, that news didn't make it to the mainstream media, it only was highlighted on social media after Grace Manu posted it, and some internet platform like Muknaik, they highlighted this issue. So internet is the platform where these voices, these news can be brought, we can bring to the forefront. But the thing is, it is not inclusive, not safe. And no government agency or private companies are trying to make it safe for queer people. We have written, like I had written a few campaigns, we had written to many organizations that, you are saying we are against hate speech and fake news and everything, but see, you are not providing us any option to report this transphobic, homophobic thing, queerphobic content. Nobody listens. They are saying, okay, you have got this platform, you can say that is diversity, but you are not making us safe. That is not inclusion. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Riddhishi. I completely agree with you. So where much more concentrate has to be given, and two, the voice has to arise. Yes,
exactly.
Unmute. The voice has to rise. I agree with that one. So I would like to understand much more in the aspect too of the languages. There is an expertise with deep interest in the Indian languages and also fashion to solve the complex problems led to a joint hands with the veterans in the language technology space as well. So I would like to go with an Vidushi Kapoor. What's your thoughts about this one?
Hi, good morning, everyone. The first point that I'd like to make is that there is a myth or a perception that we have been trying to bust for the longest time, which is that India is not an speaking country. Whenever we have tried to speak with, the businesses and content publishers on the internet, largely we have seen that, websites are in English. Just, if we look at some simple statistics, The Constitution recognizes 23 official languages in this country, one of them being English, but the remaining 22 are of Indian origin. The last statistics of TRAI said more than 800 million internet users in India. But the content in Indian languages on the internet, all languages combined, is barely 1% only. Now, with a population or a demand of so many individuals for Indian language content and the supply so little, so definitely there is a gap and a lack of inclusivity. A lot of us, when we meet with people from other countries, either we travel abroad or people from abroad come and they interact with us. It's a common observation, although thankfully it is reducing, but it is a common observation. Oh, your English is so good. You can, you communicate so well in English. How come? English is not, India is not really an English speaking country, or English is not really your first language. People outside understand it that, that probably, English is not so widely spoken or not such a popular language in this country, but we ourselves sitting in India are not cognizant of that fact. If we look at, just a few years ago, there was a time when there was no internet. If you look at offline content, more than 95% periodicals, newspapers, magazines, books, movies, TV channels of this country are in local language. Our key advertising is in local language. We don't have think cold drink, think Coca-Cola. We have Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola. All our key taglines or anything that, any messaging that wants to reach the masses is all in local languages. But, as soon as the internet came into the country, it was entirely in English. You couldn't even properly type and display content in Indian languages. Even if there was, typing tools, mechanisms available, the devices did not support it. It is over the last, 10 to 15 odd years where rapid change has happened in making sure that all devices support Indian languages. You have typing mechanisms available in smart and non-smart phones. You have UI UXs available in Indian languages, and now even apps and websites. So, the gap has been severe, and there is a lot of work to be done to fix it. Why is it important to have, internet and technology in Indian languages? If you just start thinking about it, it's so intuitive for all of us, for people who are conversant and comfortable in English. Our mobile phone and our laptops are something that we cannot even imagine life without anymore. We use them for so many things, not just for making calls. In fact, least of all for making calls. We are barely making calls, today. We're using the internet for almost everything. We cannot imagine any major function of our life today without the internet or without an app or without Googling something. But imagine someone who does not understand English. A smartphone is just a phone for them. They use it to watch videos, listen to songs, or click pictures. Those were what the mobile phone was really used for until languages started coming in, and it's a very different world to even imagine. Not just access to information, conveniences, but also equal opportunity. Having educational content available in your language, having services, government services available, education, healthcare, financial services, legal support. This can have huge impacts on rural empowerment, women empowerment, more inclusion, a better level playing field, more employment, more entrepreneurship, GDP growth. It can have vast ranging impacts on all of these areas, which is why it is so critical, so important.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with that one. The language is like, and sometimes, especially for the rural area and the remote areas, for the rural empowerment, that we talk a lot. But language come in the first line as a barrier. So even though we have a universal acceptance and all, which are working for this specifically, so but I completely agree with your points. So the next, I would like to hear much more about the one who is much more proactively working on the Dalit and women issues. So, and who is the one journalist from the Delhi, that's Meena Kotwal. So would like to hear much more, what are the challenges are there, and what is the policy, if there is any, and what are the challenges, how can we overcome all those in with respect to Dalit areas and the women perspective. Over to you, Meena Kotwal.
थैंक यू आदर्श। सबसे पहले तो आप लोगों ने मुझे यहाँ बुलाया, उसके लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। और एक चीज मैं कहना चाहूंगी आदर्श, आपने शुरू में मुझे कहा कि दलित जर्नलिस्ट, मैं दलित कम्युनिटी से हूँ, जर्नलिस्ट हूँ, लेकिन आप प्लीज दलित जर्नलिस्ट ना कहें। जैसे हम लोग सवर्णा या ब्राह्मण को ये नहीं कहते हैं कि वो सवर्णा जर्नलिस्ट है या ब्राह्मण जर्नलिस्ट है, इसलिए मैं चाहती हूँ कि आप लोग ऐसे ना कहें मुझे, क्योंकि मैं जिस कम्युनिटी के लिए आवाज उठाती हूँ बिल्कुल वो वंचित और शोषित जरूर है, लेकिन मैं कोशिश करती हूँ कि मैं सभी के लिए आवाज उठाऊं। एंड थैंक यू। हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं कि भाई इंटरनेट जो है सभी को जगह देता है या नहीं देता है। बिल्कुल एक तरह से अभी हम लोग देखें तो इंटरनेट ही है जो डिप्रेस्ड कम्युनिटी है उनकी आवाज बन रहा है, क्योंकि जैसा ऋतुश्री ने भी कहा और बाकी लोगों ने भी कहा कि मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया तो हमारी आवाज नहीं उठाएगा। मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया तो बहुत सिलेक्टेड ही आवाज उठाता है कि उसको कहाँ से फायदा हो रहा है, कहाँ से नहीं हो रहा। लेकिन इंटरनेट ने बहुत अभी पावर दी है। अगर हम देखें तो इंडिया का जो यूथ है, वो सबसे ज्यादा जो यूथ है वो इंटरनेट यूज करता है, और उसे पता है, अब मतलब उसे इतना पता चल गया है कि अगर मेरे साथ कोई परेशानी है तो मैं उसको सोशल मीडिया पे डाल सकता हूँ। सोशल मीडिया पर डालने से उसको कोई ना कोई तो उठा ही लेगा उस मैटर को। और हमारे पास ऐसे कई सारे मैटर्स आते हैं जो हम लोग सोशल मीडिया से ही उठाते हैं, क्योंकि हम लोग कहीं सबसे डायरेक्ट कांटेक्ट नहीं कर सकते या कोई हमसे डायरेक्ट कांटेक्ट नहीं कर सकता है। तो वो सोशल मीडिया ही है।
Meena, sorry to interrupt. So just some comments. So we have like the audience from the global as well. So if you can make it in English, that will be there. Like, and yeah, I understand the language barrier. So those who are very good, not good with an Hindi, so for they're comfortable, please can you switch on?
I am not comfortable with English.
Okay, sure, no problem, no problem. Please go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry for that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. तो इसीलिए मैं वही बात कर रही थी कि हम लोग सोशल मीडिया पे किस तरह से जो है लैंग्वेज को इश्यूज को कैसे उठा सकते हैं, डाइवर्स कैसे है। लेकिन ये भी एक सच है हमारे यहाँ पर कि अगर हम मैं जर्नलिस्ट का ही अगर आपको एग्जांपल दूं, तो अगर टॉप 20 जर्नलिस्ट अगर हम उठाते हैं ट्विटर पर, तो उसमें कहीं भी दलित आदिवासी नहीं दिखेंगे। सिर्फ एक रूबिका लियाकत है जो मुस्लिम है, बाकी तो अंजना ओम कश्यप आप देख लीजिए, बाकी और भी जितने हैं जिनके टाइटल आप देख लीजिए, सारे के सारे सवर्णा हैं। सिर्फ एक मुस्लिम दिखेगी। तो वो भी हमारे साथ चैलेंजेस होते हैं कि दलित को, आदिवासी को जगह नहीं मिलती है। लेकिन हाँ, ये भी सच है, ऋतुश्री ने भी बताया कि जैसे अब हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं वो हम लोग सोशल मीडिया पर लेकर जा सकते हैं। तो वो डाइवर्स जो है, जो डाइवर्सिटी जो है वो इंटरनेट के जरिए से हो रही है। और जो है कोई सोशल मीडिया के अलावा जैसे हम मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया देखते हैं या कहीं और है, वो डाइवर्सिटी नहीं बन पा रही है, वहां से नहीं बन पा रही है। तो ये बहुत जरूरी है कि इंटरनेट सब लोगों की आवाज उठाने में मदद कर रहा है। चैलेंजेस बिल्कुल होते हैं इसमें, क्योंकि आपको बिल्कुल रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं मिलता है, आपको कोई जो है अहमियत नहीं देता है। तो ऐसे भी होते हैं। जैसे सोशल मीडिया पर अगर हम लोग देखें या और भी जगह देखें, तो वहां पे आप देखिए कौन है, दलित आदिवासी लोग दिखाई नहीं देते हैं। जैसे ऋतुश्री है हमारी, इसमें तो ऋतुश्री जैसे जो क्वेयर कम्युनिटी के हैं वो लोग भी नहीं दिखाई देते, तो उनके भी अपने अलग चैलेंजेस हैं। तो एक इंटरनेट ही है जिसकी वजह से सभी लोग अपनी आवाज उठा सकते हैं।
True, completely agree. So in your aspects, we need to consider them as well for the discussions if there can any be. I completely agree with you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. So here I would like to grab the Shruti Shreya, so who is the one much more included with an intermediary reliability, content moderation, and freedom of expression. So that's much more comes into picture. So I would like to hear from you, Shruti Shreya. What's your thoughts about this one? Please, over to you.
Hi, Adarsh. Thanks to everybody, Purnima, Brinda, and the entire team for inviting me here. After listening to the views of all my other fellow panelists, I certainly agree with most of the opinions that they've shared, and I must say that most of the things that needs to be covered, they've covered. But in my opinion, and I would just like to give these things a little more different perspective and just add value to a little more meaning and a little more new ideas to what has already been talked about. So yeah, we talked about how there are challenges persisting for women, there are challenges persisting for LGBTQ community, and as well as the language barriers that exist. In my opinion, and in addition to what has already been discussed as the reason for this challenge and the reason which is hampering the inclusive nature of the internet, is the safety challenges that exists on the internet. So be it the trolls, be it the spams, the cyberbullying, all these things are something which is greatly impacting all these marginalized communities, be it women, be it the LGBTQ plus communities. There are multiple researchers which shows that women are trolled much more than any other community, and the same holds true for the LGBTQ plus people. Now, as it was rightly pointed out, that it's not very easy for people from the LGBTQ plus community to come out in the physical space. So they use the anonymity which is provided by the internet to express themselves freely, to voice their opinions. However, the acceptance rate is still minimal even on the internet. The internet has the responsibility to empower these communities so that even they are accepted in the physical space. But if the internet is being, this responsibility of the internet is not being fulfilled properly, given the fact that the trolls, the different kinds of bullying that takes place on the internet, anytime a person of these communities comes out and expresses himself or herself properly, is a challenge which is faced. Now, the impact of these challenges on these communities is another important thing. Women who are working as entrepreneurs on the online space, women who use internet as a means of their livelihood, journalists, human rights workers, whistleblowers who come from the women community, they have to face immense challenges, and the challenge is greater as compared to men. So we need to understand that this is the safety threats which is there, is one of the key reasons which is hampering not just the economic welfare of women, given that they are not able to exercise their right to livelihood well, but also their socio-economic progress, where they are not able to tackle the challenges of the physical space as well as they could have if the internet would have given them a lot more empowerment. Internet has definitely given them more space, but there is a long way to go before it can actually help women and LGBTQ plus community people realize their true potentials. Coming to the language barriers that exist, one of the key challenges is the data gaps which exist. Like whatever, be it AI, ML technologies, the data that is collected for formulation of these technologies itself is not inclusive. Many of the forms of the government still have just two genders, whether it is male or female. They do not even give the option of a third gender there. So we are just losing on that kind of data during the creation of the algorithms. And then if the processing, if the creation of the data is not inclusive, then we cannot even think that the technology that is being developed will be inclusive. So ensuring getting more technology, more inclusive nature of data, as well as thinking about the peculiar safety challenges of all these marginalized communities is something which we are lacking on and which we really need to more effectively and collaboratively work towards to ensure that we are able to tackle.
Right, right. So I completely agree with that point, specifically where internet is the major one, where we can't come up front and we can, internet is the space to express. So there is like an article 19A from the Indian government, article 19 will mention. So it's the right to freedom of speech and expression through the internet. So that's, I think we are missing up there. So a lot of awareness need to be bring up. So yeah, we need to work on to bring up the awareness among everyone about this one. So here I would like to hear from Samir. Samir is the one doing amazing work through the Youth for Jobs Foundation. So we are focusing on skilling and linking less educated youth and with the disabilities as well. So in the sustained liability across India. So we'd like to much more from Samir in the perspective of where the disabilities as well facing the issue. Are we considering them for the discussions? Are we making the internet isn't feasible for them? So please share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Adarsh. Hope I'm audible.
You are audible. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to this beautiful discussion on digital inclusion. Before I get into the answering the questions put across, I would take a minute to talk about my organization, which I'm representing. I represent an organization called Youth for Jobs Foundation, which works exclusively for people with disabilities across India. We work with both less educated and educated youth, present in both urban and rural areas, working with all genders across, from the age group of 18 to 40 plus. The reason I thought I should tell this so that my perspective on these questions would be understood by others, since I'm representing entire people with disability community across India. Now, answering the question, do you think internet is currently inclusive? We should look this at two aspects of it. Okay, one is pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, and post-COVID. Currently we still are under the COVID thing, and one thing which we should realize is there has been a lot of optimism by various online platforms. Okay, the usage of Google, the Zoom, etc. have gone up compared to pre and post-pandemic. So that gives a lot of optimism that there is a digital increment happening from pre-COVID days to the post-COVID days. However, saying this, we also have seen several technological advancements have made technology seemingly fit into our lives. So earlier people who were not using Zoom currently use everything Zoom. Okay, people who felt that digital cannot be used, now every area you'll see digital being used. So that's a good improvement and good achievement what we have done. In fact, our classroom training programs, pre-pandemic, we never felt that we could make people with disability get into the digital platform. But what we have done as post-COVID, the entire training program is online. So people are using Gmeet, Zoom, WhatsApp, LMS platform to get into this training program. So it is an encouragement to see that people are using digital. But having said this, meaningful and inclusive access still lags behind. Okay, so most of the platforms still are not meaningful, still are not inclusive for people with disabilities, which we need to consider while developing such platforms to ensure that people with disabilities, almost 21 types of people with disabilities are there. At least bare minimum people with disabilities can use these platforms. One of the other aspects, as I mentioned, we also work focusing on rural areas. One of the things which I see is, despite great progress in internet adoption, access is not equally distributed. Okay, so if you see people with disabilities in urban areas have far greater access compared to the people with disabilities in the rural areas. Not to say about women with disabilities in rural areas, they are the most affected, and there is only slow progress in terms of internet adoption. Now, why are these challenges, especially for people with disabilities? If I can do so, I can divide into 5 aspects of it. One key challenge being the urban and rural divide, which is there across India. You would see that in any area of spectrum. Second is the gender gap. In any area, be it rural or be it semi-rural, urban or semi-urban, you'll see this gender gap. The income disparity. Okay, even if I want to purchase a basic smartphone at the rural area, because of the income disparity, you see technology not being much used, even though there's a scope of using it. So income disparity plays a major hurdle in terms of making this digital inclusion. literacy, as I said, people with disabilities have more of literacy related problems. I'm talking about generic literacy, not to talk about digital literacy, which need to be picked up among the people with disabilities. And last, but not the least, affordability. Even if you think the small packages of 30 rupees, 50 rupees are affordable, unfortunately, people with disabilities from rural areas cannot afford that. So making the entire spectrum of internet accessible and affordable for people with disabilities would ensure more and more people with disabilities are part of this digital inclusion. Now, what do we need to do first for the challenges? One of the foremost thing what I feel is, there has to be an effective rural internet policy, which focuses on the gender as well as people with disability into it, especially people with disability from the female gender and third gender as such. And also, this policy should be trackable. If you can't trackable and attract people to it, I think it will never work. Okay, and we should also build a framework that enhances digital and financial literacy. I think both digital and financial literacy go hand in hand. We can't see in an isolation. So any framework would have both digital and financial literacy built in. Last but not the least, I think the content should be in the regional languages apart from the local languages, which should help people with disability coming from the rural areas with less educated background, which are predominantly more among the people with disability community. As I mentioned earlier, we also need to make a cost-effective, affordable product, which can be used by the rural areas as such. And last, if you have to make the entire digital inclusive, I think more should come from the companies where people hire. And if you look at most of the companies, including the website, the technology, the platforms, what they are used are not still inclusive. So once they start doing it, more and more people would obviously become digital savvy and help people with disability get included in it. Thanks, Adarsh, for giving me this opportunity.
Most welcome, Samir, for your words. I completely agree. A lot of policies will come up. So just for a namesake, in the time of the policy comes up, there will be a lot of words. But we have seen the policies have failed for an execution. So it has to be get executed. And the policy, even with implementation, not only for the urban, in the rural, with what you have mentioned with respect to the rural, women and the rural disabilities persons, where they can raise their voice, and that much to be considered as well. Really wonderful thoughts on that one. And you mentioned about technology. So emerging technologies are there. So we have an interesting one more panel, Bhuvana Meenakshi. So who is the women in tech community in India? So I'd like to hear from Bhuvana regarding this one. What's your thoughts and how the tech will be utilized? So over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Adarsh. And also, it's been really great to be part of this panel because I think there's a lot of thoughts and also very valid opinions being thrown today on this specific topic. And so to just begin with, understanding of the internet that is being evolved. So I have read this book by name Broadband by Claire Rubins. So this book has been like a very good eye opener for me as well to understand how women created online. Created the internet space, and how women have been part of indigenous software systems, software and the complex hardwares as well, and how the start was being suppressed back in like the 12th century, where it all started with Ada Lovelace. We all know that how the analytical engine systems and how complex the evolution of even programming and everything got started with women, and also to the creation of the first TCP IP, and then also the modern video games. So there has been consistently the participation of women in all of these development of the modern technology as well. But there's also the fact that post World War II, where this representation slowly moved on for the reasons of getting into a more male dominant society, and then that's later to where in the 21st century women had to raise out their voices to get their rights, to get back into that form of understanding that they've been contributing into the representation of development of these spaces of digital access as well. So there's this report from the Internet and Association of India, which gives a survey from 2019, where predominantly says there's this gender distribution across new female entrants into internet is just like 35%, and that among which the rural women is just participation of 40% from various geographies from it's just from India. So this 40 or like this 30% of women who trying to access the internet, they're definitely they're prone to various challenges, and of course that is not very much restrictive to just the accessibility to the online space, but then it's also accessibility to the hardware, and along with that comes like the literacy to access it, and also what I wanted to emphasize here is more of the psychological based challenges that comes along with expressing certain expressions of thought. So if that I represent from a neurodiverse community, and if that neurodiversity is still a new term here, then I just trying to give a definition of like what neurodiversity is. So it is a diversity of human brains and minds that has like infinite variation in neurocognitive functioning with our species, and the individuals who are part of the neurodiverse community are called as neurodivergents. Now creating an inclusive space for the neurodivergents has been a way further to what we have in systems for the PWD. So the PWD in itself, as in like the policies that we have for India, if you see, there are very restrictive to the type of spectrum of disability that's been actually represented, and but then my opinion is that there are way more to what actually mental disability could be represented in, and also there are people who fall in various diverse notions of what you call as a neurodiverse. And this concept of late has been growing a little. I mean, it could be either in the offline space and that it's just very nascent to the online space, and people from neurodiverse communities are still trying to find ways, and especially the global south, where there's very less awareness about what does this overall thing mean, and how people need to understand and accept these factors is also a point of concern that I want to represent here, and also representation of to the open access internet for various diverse communities is still a full flourished policy, or full inclusive online process is I mean, in terms of various needs, and in terms of we're being now thrown into situations of only dependent on virtual systems is still a need. So I mean, just to sum up my points, I'm more interested to find how open access internet can represent various communities, and also help marginalized groups to it's just not about just not about the representation online, but also as everyone already mentioned, it's also about how to give that rights to express.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Buna. So I completely agree with you. So it's not like an open access to an internet. So we need to include them for the discussion. So we need to consider them their points in all the aspects. I completely agree with that one. Thank you so much for your inputs. So in the continuation, just I would like to hear from much more. Who is very much passionate about the technology. So technology for good has been like and driving products and also focusing on building solution. So this building a solution, that's very much interesting to hear from on low income, low literacy populations in India. So that is Savita Mulay. So my all ears to you. So over to you.
Thank you, Adarsh. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here as part of a very, very enriching discussion. I think it's been great to hear very, different perspectives, each one looking at the same problem with a different lens. So I'll give a quick background about Haqdarshak, what we do as a company, to frame as similar to what Samir tried to do, to frame my opinions here in the context from which I speak on this topic. Right. So Haqdarshak is a 6-year-old social enterprise. We are a private limited organization with a mission to enable access to government welfare and financial inclusion for citizens and micro businesses in India. In the last 5 years, we have worked in 24 states. We're present in 24 states in India. We have channeled about more than 13,000 crores of benefits to more than 1.2 million Indians and micro businesses in the last 6 years of our operations. And the way we do this is through use of...
Savita, sorry to interrupt. Your voice is not that clear. Can you please recheck?
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's good now. Please continue.
Yeah, all right, yeah. So I'll just quickly recap. So Haqdarshak has been in this sort of mission to enable welfare and financial inclusion to communities in India. And in the last 6 years, close to 6 years, we have been able to impact about 1.2 million people, where we've linked them to welfare programs, to the basic identity documentation, etc. And the way we do this is essentially by training last mile agents that we call Haqdarshaks to act as the voice and the support system in the communities that they are serving. Now, speaking about inclusivity on the internet, I want to take a step back and talk about inclusion, right? I mean, if you see the internet in the larger history of mankind has been a very, very recent phenomenon, right? It's a 25, 30-year-old technology. It is extremely young in its early years. And as with all technology, it mirrors the reality, right? In our real world, we are far away from being a very inclusive society. Not a lot of my fellow panelists talk about kind of restrictions and constraints of how mainstream media has protected diverse communities, what platforms are available or not available in the mainstream media and mainstream businesses for these different voices. With that context, if you see, the internet has actually, the pace at which it has created openness and inclusion for different opinions and voices is extremely, extremely fast. Since the advent of an internet like platform, you have today a scenario where every voice is represented, right? Ritushi very rightly pointed out, there is representation. Is it safe? Is it inclusive? There is a lot of work to be done, right? So just like with all other sort of technological advancements, I think as the internet grows, as the usage of internet grows, as more voices and more forums like this evolve, I think that inclusion index is going to improve, right? I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by inclusion in the internet space. Right? For me, inclusion is really three-pronged. One is access, which includes things like affordability, connectivity, infrastructure. The other aspect is in terms of trust and safety. Is I have access to it, but do I trust it enough? Do I feel safe using it. And the third most important thing is, do I have a way to meaningfully utilize the internet for my life and my business, right? As an individual, I have access, but am I consuming just videos, or am I actually making some meaningful use of that information repository that the internet is opening up to me, right? So I think inclusion has to be looked at from all three aspects, and I think we have a long way to go in terms of addressing each of these separately, right? Access in terms of affordable infrastructure, trust and safety, meaningful content, relevant content, awareness and education about how to utilize the internet. I think there's a lot of work to be done. And in my opinion, as a solution going forward, and what I see shaping up in the larger ecosystem is really three-pronged, right? I see three sort of fronts from which this work has to happen. I look at it as sort of one node. If I visualize this as a triangle to define the framework, I think on one node is governments and regulatory bodies whose job is not to solve the problem, but to create an environment where solutions can evolve, right? And that comes from enabling a good infrastructure, be it in terms of physical infrastructure, be it regulatory infrastructure, be it economic infrastructure in terms of business policies, etc. The second front comes to it from the private sector. The private sector has a very big role to play, and I think as a classic example, last 5 years, what we've seen, especially in India, with the introduction of geo platforms. I mean, the kind of inclusion that you have seen, the kind of adoption of internet, whether it is meaningful or not is a moot point. But the fact that more people have now access to internet because of a single private company's agenda is a great example of the power of what the private sector can do here, right? And I think the third front has to be civil society organizations, philanthropies, think tanks, research organizations, grassroots organizations, non-profits. I think a lot of work is already happening. I see in Adarshak space, we work with a lot of ecosystem players, including state governments, including philanthropies and think tanks, and even grassroots organizations, people who are working at a village level on the ground, along with our Darshak agents to solve various problems. Right? I think the civil society organizations have that the responsibility to tackle not necessarily development of the problem, but bringing out voices, opinions, and perspectives from the ground, bringing out data, bringing out thinking, diverse thinking. I think this panel represents a lot of that kind of opinion and that kind of voice, which is going to be a very, very important input to the other two fronts, right? Government needs to hear this to be able to formulate policies. Private sector needs to hear this to know what kind of solutions are needed. I can't solve a problem if I don't know the extent and the nature of the problem, right? So solution building has to happen at all three fronts. And I think these three fronts have to work together. There cannot be a one versus the other approach. There cannot be a this is my space and this is your space approach. I think a collaborative approach is what is going to help fasten the pace of inclusion. I think it's a great medium for inclusion. I think it's just a matter of investing the right resources and time. And I think with forums like this, I think this is the kind of forum that needs to be highlighted more for this to come together.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Savita, for all your insights. I completely agree. Thank you for sharing. There are three aspects which need to be considered. It could be trust, safety, awareness, and all. So that's a great insight that you give, where we have to concentrate much more and where we are lagging specifically. So to bring up the inclusion, so in the internet aspect. So it's a wonderful thought section. Really, trust me, I am I'm bringing a lot of information from very well experienced from the panelists I've just gained today. So we are all happy for that. So now it's time to open floor to give an opportunity for an audience to ask the questions. So just let me check with that. So meanwhile, I would like to check, Brunda, do we have a time to take up the questions?
Yes, Adarsh, we have 5 minutes to take up some questions from the audience. We have one from Nirosha. I'm going to go back and paste the question so that we can take a look at it. Yes, give me a minute.
Sure.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, there is a question from Brunda itself. So I can see that. So what policy measures can be taken to bridge the gender digital divide gap in our country like in India? So I would like to ask this one, Divya. Can you take up this question? Can you answer for this? So Divya Gupta. Okay, seems like some challenges. It's like so. Vidushi Kapoor, would you mind to take up this one? I think. Okay, so
Adarsh, may I go ahead?
Yeah, please, Shruti.
Okay, thank you. So, firstly, this is a very good question. I think legal and policy solutions and devising sustainable legal and policy frameworks is very important to have, combat these challenges and ensure an inclusive space. Most importantly, these inclusive legal and policy frameworks can come from the collaborative efforts of the government, the platforms themselves, and the civil society. So the platforms and the civil society needs to consistently give their feedback to the government with respect to where the policies are lacking, where the laws are lacking, and how can these laws and policies be made more inclusive. Now, we saw that India is in the final stages of enacting its data protection law. And here, for the last 2 years, since the report was there with the JPC, the bill was with the JPC, and the JPC was working on its set of recommendations. There was a series of extensive consultations with all the different stakeholders in the ecosystem. Many of these recommendations have been incorporated in the report. Some have not been incorporated. So, at least having that open pathway where everybody can voice their opinion is very important. And more importantly, it's important that in any legal or policy making process, there is adequate representation of all communities. Even now, we see that the representation from women and LGBTQ plus community in our parliament or even our state level legislatures is very less. More importantly, the specialized committees that are framed under different ministries, be it the MeToo, be it the MIB, be it any other ministry for that matter, we need to ensure that any particular specialized committee which is working on any specialized issue, in addition to the technical experts, like if it is related to internet, it's related to data, it's related to online safety, it's important that there is representation from the technical community so that they can understand the challenges there. And as well as there is representation from the different social communities so that different kinds of social voices are heard. Like we saw in the IT rules of 2021, there has been the mandate of enabling traceability on encrypted platforms for knowing who has been the first sender. There has been a lot of uproar in the civil society that this is a very technically infeasible measure, which is going to lead to undermining the privacy of all the citizens. So here the technical community needs to be heard. We need to consult professors from the IIT. We need to consult the technologists. That is it actually possible to have traceability on encrypted platforms? Similarly, understanding the perspective of journalists, women, and how important that encryption-enabled anonymity is for them. And not just for the government, but also for the platforms, like the community guidelines that they come up with, the terms of service of the platforms, according to which they exercise what content is flagged, who's supposed to be blocked, all of that. They need to ensure that there is consistent feedback on their community guidelines, their terms of service. They publish frequent reports. They are coming up with compliance reports in adherence with the IT rules. But it's important that these transparency and compliance reports are made more nuanced and more robust basis what recommendations is coming. Right now, the transparency reports of all the intermediaries in India only contain the data which is related to the content that has been taken down through proactive monitoring or user grievance, through the grievance redressing mechanism where the users file complaint. Government requests basis which takedown is done, which is one of the most prominent ones. That data is not available in the compliance reports. So if the law enforcement agencies is demanding takedown of a particular kind of content, the platforms is not publishing that in India. And this is not in accordance with what is there in the Santa Clara Principles. So the Santa Clara Principles is considered the global soft laws on content moderation. And we've just come up with Santa Clara 2.0. So there they have given nuanced procedures with respect to how content moderation should take place. So it's important that the platforms adhere to these policies. They ensure that their compliance reports is uniform across jurisdictions. It's seen that in lesser advantageous countries like Africa and other regions, the compliance reports are not that robust because people lack awareness, people lack that kind of literacy, and there's not so much of activism. So they think, so it's important that it's being called out and frequent feedback is given to the platforms as well as the government, and so that we ensure that there is appropriate level of accountability and transparency on part of all these stakeholders, and we can have inclusive frameworks, be it policy or legal.
Right. Thank you so much, Shruti, for taking up and giving an answer for that. So I would like immediately jump to our next question. There's a question like, are there any legal framework to protect the rights of digital inclusions in India? So I hope this question is from Nirosha. So I would like to check with Ritu Shri. Ritu Shri is one of the queer rights activists. So what's your thought, Ritu Shri, on this question?
See, as of now, for inclusion of diversity, this whole diversity of inclusion, and I think in India, not only on internet but also in corporates and everywhere, it is a very new concept. We were trained to discriminate. We are not trained to include people. So there is no as such inclusion policy from the government. There are some regulations or something, but you cannot call it inclusive policies, which indeed the requirement, if you see not only on internet, but for internet, but also for every sector, like the corporate and everywhere, you need a policy of inclusion. Now, when we say, as I said earlier, when we say inclusion, people say, increase percentage of diversity is inclusion. No, inclusion means the sense of belongingness and oppressed community feel at the place, at the space. Right now we are talking about the internet. So government, now the thing is, we always say that, okay, government will do, the civil society will do, or the private parties will do, but it has to come from the top. Even during in the DE&I spectrum, when we are making policy for the corporates, we always say that the mission statement, the inclusion policy has to come from the top. Here, the government has to take, the initiative. But sadly, all these things of inclusion and safety and belongingness never find any place in government policies, So that is the sad part. But yes, we need a strong policy. Like if you see, not only for the queer people or the oppressed community, if you see someone in the panel, I just extremely sorry, I forgot the name who said this, but the woman, cisgender women, transgender women, the queer, they are very vulnerable. If you have seen news, the way they have been trolled, the way they have been, even they have been auctioned, their photos have been auctioned, on internet. But we do not have, like, if you want to complain or file FIR, you have to go through this, this IPC, CRPC thing, the traditional way. There is no specific law to curb down it. And right now, the internet is spreading across the world like a bushfire. You know, everything is on internet. People are spending more time on internet than on their in their office or family. So you need to regulate this, because this, if now at the initial stage, if we are not regulating this, we are not making any policy, then situations will be devastating in future.
Right. So that's great to know. So now, like, and just I would like to hear from every the panel's member. So, like, and just like in closing remarks, what's the closing remarks in very short, like in only 1 minute of time. We don't have a lot of time now, so we're already out of time. So, I would like to hear. We'll start from the Ritushri.
Adarsh.
Yeah, please.
Adarsh.
Yes,
Others, I wanted to add a few points to know the policy perspective actually. There are policies that are happening, but they are not out to the public. I think internally they are handling or giving some of the organizations to implement, like CDAC, and especially in the police actually. So there are cyber cells that they have opened, and they are taking all the cyber cases into those cells. Example, if you take Hyderabad Security Council, okay, and so they are one of the non-profit organization associated with a police and the task force and the policies, and they are doing a lot of things, and the cyber cells as well. I think this is one point of contact that we can make, or maybe associate with them and understand, and more push the digital or maybe push the cyber cases, or how to create the awareness and all that in association with Hyderabad Security Council, and as well as the CDAC, Center for Development of Advanced Computing. Actually, these are the people who are now creating more on the awareness, the security awareness, and even many of the things that they are doing in the back end, but it is not coming to the public. Okay, I think this is what actually we'll have to associate with these two associations, especially Hyderabad Security Council and as well as CDAC, which are the implementers actually, the developers. Even these people are developing without knowing the social consciousness, or maybe sometimes it is very difficult to understand what is the requirement of the society. That is where actually we all people need to provide some inputs to them while developing such tools. And as well as while Hyderabad Security Council, they are taking forward some of the initiatives with police. I think this is where we will have to involve and give our inputs, so that they can better implement whatever the policies that they are running internally, which are not opened everywhere because of many reasons. Okay, we know what all the things are happening across the globe. Okay, so every country has their own way of handling the things. That is where actually, so I think
Mr. Nitha, I would request you to kindly take your comment to the chat box, please.
Yes.
We are running out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're running out of time. Thank you, Inga, for your comments. So there's an answer rise from Shruti. Shruti, would you like to add something here? Purnima will take only just 2 minutes more.
Yeah, I'll just speak 1 minute. So yeah, I agree with what we just heard. And it was more so in pursuance of the same, that it's not that we do not have any laws and policies, but the most important challenge is that we do not have targeted policies, and more importantly, there is not appropriate implementation of the existing laws and policies. So there exists, under the POCSO rules, we have everything related to child sexual abuse material. Its proliferation is a crime, and there is hardcore punishments laid down to track these criminals as well as to prosecute them. But we see that despite this being there, there was a report which said that out of 15,000 CSAM complaints which is made to the NCRB, only 15 are converted into FIRs. So this implementation gap is the most important challenge. We have laws, we have some policies. The Niti Aayog is consistently working towards more inclusive policies, but still the implementation is where we are lagging, and that is something we need to more importantly take care of.
Yes, right. Yeah, thank you for that. And Ritushri, if you want to add something, just Please.
I just want to conclude this, as I said about policy and everything, yes, we have some policies, but we have to understand this, that inclusion is not, doesn't mean safety only, inclusion is much more than that. If you are only making policies to, counter any attack or any crime on any oppressed or lesser represented community on internet, that is not inclusion. Inclusion is much more than that. Inclusion is belongingness, where you feel like, okay, I belong to this space.
Right.
So as my fellow speaker said, yes, there are laws, to counter all these crimes and everything. But what I was trying to say is, yes, there is no policy as such to make it inclusive, to make people feel, belong. As I said, the gender data, we do not have any policy or rule which mandate every company or every platform to say you have to provide gender data form not only in binary male female, but male female, transgender, non-binary. That's an example of how, what is inclusiveness and belonging.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much for Atishi for sharing. And we had a plan to take the short and remarks from other speakers as well. Due to the time, we are not just dropping that one. Next, the Purnima, what's the next? Are we going with a group photo or just again? The next vote of thanks.
Sure. We can take a quick picture if everybody can turn their cameras on. The speakers, the audience, we would really love to have one image of this particular session. All right. Okay, smile everyone. Great to see you here. All right. Okay. So thank you everyone. Others, I think you can take it from here. Yeah. Am I audible, Others?
Yes, Purnima, I missed you. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So thank you, Others. It was really lovely to have everybody on board today. I would like to thank all of the speakers to actually take their time out for us and grace us with their presence. Internet, as you know, it has been already discussed in such lengths and breadths that we have this particular dynamic coalition in Internet Governance Forum, which talks about how access to internet, it's a part of a right. This particular dynamic coalition was on internet policies and rights was introduced in 2009, and it was particularly they gave off like 10 rights therein, and accessibility and diversity were sort of addressed as the right that any digital users would have. So just trying to conclude my thoughts here with saying that digital inclusion is also about creating meaning for everybody. So I think with this I would like to conclude this particular session. I'd like to thank lovely speakers. Thank you for giving us such an interesting session. I would like to thank the organizers quickly: Internet Society Hyderabad, Internet Society Chennai chapter, Youth IGF, Ihita, Adarsh, and Brinda, obviously. So thank you everybody for gracing us with your presence. Have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you.